It's neat that I know I have one world record. I'm not going to tell you which one it is, and if you find it and you take it from me, I will cry. Zomboid is The Sims if it had more zombies and similarly deadly ladders. The Sims, but with diseases based on how bloody your clothes get. Thank goodness for bleach. This is Project Zomboid, an apocalypse simulator. There's farming, husbandry, car repair, stuffed animals, crafting, and building systems. I'm trying to impress upon you just how involved some aspects of this game are, but it's really difficult if you haven't played it yourself. You used to be able to siphon gas from a car with just a container. Now, you need a rubber hose. Most of my characters don't die to zombification, they die of infection or hunger. Food has proteins, fat, carbs, and calories, all of which affect your weight and health. Your shoulder and hand will get sore if you fire a shotgun too much, decreasing your accuracy with ranged weapons and your power with melee weapons. I suck at fishing. And all that begs a very important question. Why can't I cry? Surely the shock of it all. Do you mind? Get out of here. Surely the shock of it all, the constant danger, the knowledge that everyone I cared about is likely dead, that the world is over. I'd be a little sad, right? There's even a Moodle for it. And yes, these cute little guys are called Moodles. Look, sad. And if I eat this dead rat, that upgrades to hopeless. Or downgrades? Degrades? The weight of this endless night presses upon me. The corpses of my twice dead neighbors adorn my lawn, a macabre memorial to the life and community we used to share. In my dreams, when I see those I held dear, their mouths fall open like broken puppets, and what used to be words are just groans and unholy shrieks, accusations from the damned, demanding to know why I am still alive. I'm denied even the peace of loneliness, haunted and hunted by rotting imposters, wearing the faces of the people I used to know. And every day my old memories erode, washed clean in the baptism of blood that has become my everyday. But I guess I'm fine with it. Zombie survival sims have essentially become their own genre at this point, competing in sheer quantity with other survival games more broadly. State of Decay, DayZ, The Day Before, 7 Days to Die, Scum, Dying Light, Unturned, Dying Light 2 Stay Human, Zombie Survival Game Online, Days Gone, State of Decay 2, State of Decay 3, Minecraft. There's even 3 separate indie zombie survival games advertising themselves on this same Reddit post asking for recommendations. By the way, am I the only one that completely fell off DayZ when it went standalone? God, what an awesome disappointment. Project Zomboid, calling itself the ultimate zombie survival RPG, has been in active development since 2011. This game has been getting updates and release cycles for almost 15 years. Fucking wild. It's up to build 42 at this point, released earlier this year, and adding wildlife, basements, elevators, and a whole lot of other stuff. This game, far as I can tell, is trying to be the most detailed zombie apocalypse simulator conceivable. It's got one of the most brutal learning curves I've ever experienced. I bounced off this game easily 4 or 5 times after first being introduced to it, And then the game finally added voice acting, so now this game has one mode, hardcore. You die, it's over. And by default, the game has you infected by bites or scratches, which means any attack could be the one that takes you down. And on top of that, so many systems and menus and icons and conditions. A lot of the game comes down to organization and preparation. I keep a toolbox and this trauma bag I looted from an ambulance in my car at all times. Extra tires, battery chargers, food. I have a can opener in my fanny pack because if I try to open a can of soup with my knife, it might slip and cut my hand, and then I die because I can't swing my weapon. I keep sheets in my trunk so if I lose track of time and stay out too late, I can block visibility in whatever building I'm sleeping in. I have crates full of canned food, ammunition, crafting materials, and books. I stockpile armor and tough clothing like leather gloves. Everything I do points towards one singular, all-encompassing goal. Stay alive. Build a wall. Prepare the car. Get in shape. Right now, they're all means to one end. So, that's the video game. Survive today, and when you can do that without panicking, start planning for the future. Getting to grips with all the systems required for that is an effort, but there comes a point where the mechanics and systems fade into the background and everything starts to just work. I want to build a fence, so I find an axe, chop down a tree, saw the logs into planks, build a frame, put up a wall. I accidentally obliterate a rabbit with my car, so I dress it down, toss it in a pan with stale onions, add its skull to the shrine, and that's technically a meal. In a game filled with elegant game design, perhaps my favorite system in Zomboid is how experience in leveling up your skills works. You've got a huge list of them, 33 at time of writing, including things like running, axes, agriculture, and metalworking. It's in these skills that players find their long-term goals. skills, learning how to build not just a wall, but a staircase, knowing the right pesticides to protect your crops, mastering every step of hunting, butchering, and preserving a deer to maximize calories in the lean winters. Most of these skills have related skill books. These don't give you experience, they won't level your skills for you. What they give you is an experience multiplier and experiences gained through doing. You can just start building a fence and see how things work out. You'll do it inefficiently, you'll waste resources and time, but that's the cost of learning. At the end, you'll still have a fence, and you'll have learned how to do it better next time. But if you've read Carpentry 1, A Guide to Nailing, you have some pointers from someone who's already done the hard work of failing for you, making the experience you do gain so much more valuable. This is especially important at higher levels. The more you know, the harder it is to find places to improve on your own. You can't read the more advanced books until you're ready for them, but when you are ready for site joinery and architectural carpentry, its 16x experience multiplier is impossible to ignore. The reason I love this design so much is that it's simple and, well, it feels accurate. I like the real world implications of the design. I like what it tells the player about learning and life, that there's no substitute for doing, but that there's a lot of value in seeking the insight and expertise of others. For a character that wants to survive, really survive, learning is vital, and the best way to do that is to get some help. Throughout the world, players will stumble upon other survivors' strongholds. They're boarded up, cold, gone dark. There won't be survivors. In Zomboid, you are alone. But these places are treasure troves of weapons, food, and books. That's usually what I'm looking for. I've already raided the local library in middle school and have yet to find aiming 3 leading moving targets. This game takes place in 93, so that hadn't become required reading yet. But a survivor house is almost guaranteed to have something like it, if not exactly what I'm looking for. But you know what there aren't really books for? How to cope. You can read a novel to make the boredom and misery subside for a bit, but you can't get better at managing your emotions. You can start taking antidepressants with the knowledge you probably won't find enough for the rest of your life, or that maybe you will. So you can see how all that granularity, that crunchiness makes me want even more detail, even more subsystems. And right now, the one I care about is the fact that I can't cry. In the spirit of Project Zomboid, let's do some educational reading. Please don't click off the... There are 3 types of tears. Basal, which are always present and keep your eyes hydrated. Irritant, which flush out debris and keep your eyes safe. And emotional, the release of which is called crying. Emotional crying is thought to release oxytocin and endorphins, helping with stress and physical pain. The article, The Neurobiology of Human Crying, published in Clinical Autonomic Research in 2018. Please don't click off the... Aim to aggregate theories and studies regarding emotional crying, since like many aspects of the human body, we still don't fully understand it. It's theorized that crying shares an evolutionary origin with animal distress calls like baby mammals crying out for their mothers, but the physical shedding of tears and the subsequent visibility of the act of crying is uniquely human. The study proposes that there's a link between visible tear production and the unique prolonged childhood of humans. In this period of prolonged development, children have fully developed motoric skills but are still very dependent on the protection, nurturance, and guidance of adults. In particular, during this developmental phase, a silent strategy to elicit needed support from specific individuals most likely to provide the desired assistance must have been superior to an acoustical signal that attracts the attention of not just caregivers but also strangers and possible predators. Consequently, Grotchen and I hope et al. Conclude that the principal function of crying is to promote social bonding and mutual pro-social behavior. Well, there's one answer to why I can't cry in Project Zomboid. If the benefit of crying isn't the release of internalized emotion, the catharsis that comes with feeling, but to communicate distress to others, well, if a survivor cries in their safe house and there's no one around to see it, did it even happen? This is the kind of knowledge that leads to crying even harder, so we stuff it down and we keep reading. Researchers have consistently found increases in sympathetic activity associated with crying. Findings for parasympathetic activation are somewhat more mixed, but there is some suggestion that the resolution of crying is associated with increases in parasympathetic activity, perhaps suggesting a recovery process associated with crying. Sympathetic and parasympathetic here don't mean like having sympathy for your neighbor who's just been turned into a zombie, though that is indeed a tough situation. It's referring to the sympathetic nervous system, the parts responsible for, essentially, your fight or flight response. Your sympathetic nerves react to alarming stimuli by contracting your pupils to improve eyesight and focus, increasing your heart rate to oxygenate your muscles more effectively, slow your digestive tract so you don't shit yourself in a life or death situation. The parasympathetic nervous system, then, is responsible for rest, recovery, pooping normally, coming down, in a nutshell. So what this paper is saying is that there are potentially 2 purposes to crying: a social purpose meant to elicit support and comfort from those around you, and a physiological purpose meant to aid in physical, if not psychological, recovery from extreme situations. Not exactly what I was hoping for. I thought we'd know definitively crying makes me feel better, because if it doesn't, then what the fuck am I crying for? But okay, there's at least evidence to suggest crying might have beneficial health outcomes, even absent the help of others. Good enough for me, and therefore good enough for this loser. He's gonna cry about it. Okay. Oh. Yeah. Do you want a crash course on how to learn to mod? Do you want a crash course on how to learn to mod? I'm not doing this for the rest of the video. First, I download a mod through the Steam Workshop like normal. We find one close to the thing we're already trying to do, Break Into Tears by Arendameth, but the design of it isn't really what I want out of in-game crying, so we're modding a mod. I poke around at the files, checking what unique file types there are and opening readable text where I can find it. I Google things I don't know but definitely should, then use Notepad++ to orient the code. It's not the best development environment in the world, but it's perfect for these kinds of small projects. From there, I move forward with one goal: noticeably change anything. My preferred method is to get the game to say something. Hello World is a fun programming cliche, but it's also a valuable exercise because it means the thing isn't just talking, it's listening. If I can get the game to repeat back to me a number I've just given it, I can use that to test my own code in the future as I'm making adjustments. Now, unfortunately, it's time to read. What does the code that's already here say and do? How do the files link to each other? What syntax stuff am I seeing? I have a computer science degree, so obviously this is a little easier for me than it might be for you, but I promise you, this is where it starts, and it's easier than it looks. Start changing little pieces, learn through disassembly. If anything ever goes too wrong, reinstall the mod, good as new. No big plans right now, we're still learning to talk. We can't tell a whole story just yet. Look up name of the game I'm trying to mod, debug printout, and realize we are golden, hell yes. Okay, let's see what we can say, when we can say it, learn some grammar. At this point, when we have problems, it's easier to ask questions since we speak some of the language. One big difference between my character and I know other survivors and I can ask them for help. I joined a modding Discord to find an event for the player being damaged by a zombie. I got told that doesn't exist because the API is dumb, so I didn't get what I was after, but it still saved me from wasting time and taught me there are gaps in the system. I'll need to be patient. Turns out the Discord has pinned resources and tutorials, which led me to this document that lists every event I can tie into. This is a recipe book, generously provided by those who've gone before me. Finally, there is no substitute for doing. Figure out what you want to change and change it. Break Into Tears limits the player to crying once per day and doesn't have any sandbox options. It doesn't let users of the mod change its internal settings. I see a solution to both of these and an easy first goal: let the players decide if their daily crying is limited. But I don't just want to make adjustments. I want to build something new, contribute my own work to the project. I want 3 tiers of crying: silent, impacting only things like the player's aim; quiet, which can attract zombies; and loud, which compromises the player's control and draws zombies from further away. I want to expand on the things that can cause crying, like severe and sudden injury or escaping life and death situations. Arendameth tied our original mod into another that desensitizes the player character over time, reducing the impact of their crying, and I love that. It's a great exercise and good polish, so I'll do the same. And really, that's it. From there, it's a matter of time, dedication, and creativity. Keep at it. Who knows what you'll build? Here, I want to take an extra moment to credit Break Into Tears author, Arendameth. I've said their name a few times already, but it's important for me to recognize where the foundation I'm building on comes from. An important and previously understated part of this process is to grab someone else's work. This isn't done for the sake of release or profit, but for education. This is the equivalent of finding a skill book in Zomboid modding. It's way easier to learn from something that already works. For me, the hardest part of coding is always getting started, just getting whatever I'm building to discernibly react. It's the difference between getting yeast, flour, sugar, water, and an oven, and inventing bread. At least here I have the basics and I can start mixing the ingredients I know I need and observe the results. Someone else learned we need to grind the grains down into flour and feed the yeast. Now we learn how combining and cooking those ingredients gets us what we want. So we say thank you, Arendameth, and we get to work. My first thought was actually an opt-out mod.
Many couldn't face walking out the door. They opted out.
It's not abnormal to get dinged once or twice in a fight and get through alive, only to check your health screen and see you've been infected. Well, I've got a gun in my hand, don't I? But it turns out someone had already done that. So I looked around for a crying mod, eventually finding Break Into Tears, and saw it wasn't really what I wanted. Wait, I'm limited to crying once per day? You have no idea what I'm capable of. By the way, I spent like $100 on this outfit, and there's going to be like 4 people who get the bit, and all they will announce when they get the bit is that they're goddamn old. In college, I was lucky enough to take a course making mods. It was technically a computer science class. We were programming, but we were programming laser-guided missiles in a Quake 3 arena. It was fucking awesome. We also made cluster grenades, and after learning about recursion in a different course, I made my grenades cause more grenades, cause more grenades, cause more grenades, and crashed the game. Modding is a great way to learn or practice game game development. I figured out this is what I wanted to do for a living after creating some basic mods for Amnesia: The Dark Descent in high school with a couple buddies. It was somehow the moment everything crystallized when I realized I could be on the other end of the screen, and suddenly I knew what I wanted. Plus, modding is awesome for fixing issues with your favorite games. I've wanted to mine Minecraft's dogshit horses for years. They should at least be able to swim. They're already so irritating to work with. Like, look at this. Don't piss me off. I need a portfolio. I haven't coded in a long time. I've been working on Unreal Engine's visual script for my entire career, and I'm proud of my work in it. As an intern, I was teaching Unreal to career developers, and I've kept learning since. And while blueprinting is a useful skill given how ubiquitous Unreal has become, the games industry feels a little hostile right now, and I've neglected some of my other skills. The Indie Stone, Zomboid's developers, have been building the game with modding in mind, to the point where they host a section for modding discussions and tutorials on their forums. The name Project Zomboid was an early working title that just kinda stuck, but I think part of why it stuck is that Zomboid works well as an almost endlessly customizable pseudo-platform. Starting a new game, you can opt for a sandbox experience, and the options feel never-ending. Remember how I said scratches or bites can infect you? I turn that off instantly, every time. Fuck that. Taking the sandbox settings in concert with mods, the project has become just that, built mostly by its actual developers, obviously, but with so many fans pitching in their own good ideas and professional work, and I've wondered what I could add to it. I was a professional game developer for 7 years. I say was because, well, I lost my job. It was my fault, but developers are in a bit of a crisis right now. I scroll through LinkedIn looking for jobs, and I see so many people with stories like mine. If you didn't know, COVID was actually really good for game companies. I mean, not anyone's mental or physical health, but with everyone stuck inside, a lot of companies aggressively expanded. It became a bubble, and eventually, the bubble had to pop. Studios are closing left and right. Successful launches still often result in layoffs, and those talented, creative people don't just disappear. We're all applying to the same jobs, fighting over the same diminishing opportunities. I was tempted to write scraps there, but the truth is that working in game development has been one of the greatest privileges of my life. I was paid well to pitch ideas like the Chemtrailer, a poisonous rocket launcher whose entire design started with its funny name. I was working remotely before the pandemic even hit. I was surrounded my entire career by smart, driven people helping me be the best I could be. It wasn't all sunshine and roses. Game development is still hard work. We all know about the crunch, and it comes with its own frustrations, petty politics, and failures, but man, do I miss it. Maybe we take a second. I have cried on the job before. I had been crunching of my own accord, fighting to right a sinking ship with the help of other designers. Upper management had lost faith in the game we were making and wanted to pivot, a word that will trigger one of my old coworkers if he sees this, shout out to you, buddy, to a much more standard game. The problem was, our game was only good because of the weird things about it, and sanding off all those edges left us making a worse version of a game that was already dominating a niche corner of the market. It was suicide. But management didn't agree, so the design team hunkered down and came up with our own pitch. If we can't do what we're already doing, then let's please do this instead of the boring thing you want to do, and we set up some proofs of concept in Unreal. And despite the unanimous backing of the design team, management went with the first option they saw, and that game wound up selling maybe as little as a dozen copies. SteamDB lists its all-time peak as 2 players. The game's no longer on Steam charts, but the highest I personally saw its concurrent player base go was 12. This was a session-based multiplayer game, mind you. Matches were 10v10. Well before release, when we got the news we were going with the shitty pitch, the spitty if you will, I cried in front of another one of the designers, and the guy who came up with the pitch we were executing. I didn't mean to. I don't mind crying. I'm obviously a beta, but I just didn't want to cry in front of this particular dude. I didn't want to say, I hate your pitch so much. I am so convinced you've ruined this project that I'm going to cry about it straight to his face. But what I'd heard was, this thing you were so excited about is dead, and we're not even going to make money as recompense. The worst of all worlds. As I understand it, that game was sold to another company that resurrected it, let it shamble around a little bit longer. I finally stuck to Project Zomboid and experienced the best parts of it when I suddenly found myself with the free time to get to grips with it. I think in a lot of ways, that was actually pretty lucky for me. Zomboid, so focused on detail and procedure, on nutrition and exercise, getting through, you see it, right? But I was introduced to the game by old coworkers, and the irony is now I don't get to tell them how much I love it, unless they catch this, in which case, hey gang, miss y'all. I'm doing fine. What I miss most about game development is the people. That game I mentioned that kind of flopped, one of my favorite career memories is the design team crowded around a whiteboard, a couch pulled up right in front of it, trying to come up with a better alternative. We were all taking turns throwing out our own ideas, refining, working them together into one cohesive design. I came up with my own pitch on the side, and while I was proud of it, the one we made together, one, was just better, and two, was so much more fun to make. We were tossing around this marker, we're getting loud, we're visibly excited over our own and each other's ideas, because it wasn't just any one of ours. It was all of ours and much better for it. For me, making things is easier with other people. There's only so much I can do on my own and so much more we can do together. I have ideas and I know how to build interesting gameplay, but my solo work will never be as grand as what we can accomplish together. And the process will never be as fun. I think that's why I'm gravitating towards content creation. I miss talking to people about video games. I miss community, and this is another avenue for that. YouTube and streaming do make me feel less alone, more seen, no matter which side of the screen I'm on, and they can be powerful tools for education. There are hours upon hours of videos teaching programming, Lua, even Zomboid modding in specific. In the world of Project Zomboid, to survive and build a brighter future, I need to know how to farm, nap, reload. I'm worried about exactly one person and typically one thing: myself staying alive. But we don't need to know the best season for growing flax. We need to know what it means to be here and now. We need to understand ourselves, understand each other, and the world around us, especially right now. In a country where we can't seem to agree on goddamn anything, 95% of people agree that shit kinda sucks. I don't have a source for that. It's a rough time for just about everyone, and that goes more for some than others, and I consider myself a lucky one. But I have experience in this. I don't know if you noticed the subtle hints at my chronic depression, but it is technically a thing. My unhappiness meter is bugged and can't seem to go below a 30. Happiness doesn't come naturally to me. It's a skill I had to learn, and I had a lot of help learning it. I didn't get here alone. I'm leaving some links in the description. There are a lot of wise people out there with valuable perspectives, and we're lucky enough that they've shared their work with us. Other people are thinking about what it means to be a man or a woman or something else, to live under the weight of a looming climate crisis, about the ways our schools are increasingly designed with shootings in mind. It's important to plan for your future. It's important to believe you'll have one. It's important to cry. It's your body's way of asking for help. There's someone you can reach out to if you look in the right places. Small creators like me trying to build platforms and communities. There are so many people trying out this job right now, and I love all their content, and I'm excited for what they'll all do, and I hope they're all managing to build communities they need. I think a lot of us are a little starved for all of that. So, from one survivor to another, stay safe. Thank you for watching. Wait, did I forget to talk about Zomboid's plot where the Republican governor of Kentucky decimated health safety regulations and shuttered research labs while downplaying a known environmental threat in the explicit name of profit and economy?